Bridgett LaRé.
It's your girl, the power of positive thinking.
Hey, welcome back.
This is the Bridgett LaRé Show, where we showcase, highlight, and celebrate the unique gifts and talents that makes us all treasures in this world. Like my big brother here. Big bro.
The person who always complains about you.
This is Solomon, y'all. Hey, Solomon.
Hello, how are you?
What do you mean always complain about me? What do you see? That's why I say big brother.
You complain about me. It's like, okay, wait. You guys know she used to do her podcast here. The
Pause and Proceed podcast with my girl SB.
Which I helped come up with the name, by the way. Anyway, and came up with the logo.
Okay, you did.
All
You
right.
did the logo. You did the logo. But me and SB did the name. Don't get SB started.
Every time she'd come in, it'd be something. Turn my chair. My chair's the wrong direction. My hair. This camera makes me look fat. I need to sit a different way. Always something. And it was to the point where me and SB were both looking at her going, okay, what are you going to complain about now?
No, it was the mic. The mic was always in my face, like literally right here on my nose.
This mic is in my face because guess what? That's what you need to do to get good quality audio.
But you don't have to, you know what? The mic ain't in your face like this. It all in your nose, covering your face and all that, like your mics was. Yes, he was, y'all. I'm trying to tell you.
You just got scared of having the big phallic symbol right in front of your face like that.
You know what?
You know.
Okay, so they don't even know where we at. Tell them who you are and what is it that you do.
Okay, so this is my studio. It's Podcast Place. As the name indicates, is exclusively for podcasts. I created it because in the past when people wanted to have someplace to produce their podcasts, their only choices were going to a music studio, which would then give them a room in the back with a couple of mics and a table, and that's what they were subject to. And I wanted a place where people could come and expand on their creativity, really create something that's all their own. So imagine if you can create a podcast and then have your setting in your house or whatever that was specifically for yours. I wanted to recreate that here and do it in a way where I could provide that service to a multitude of people, each one with their own look and feel, each one with their own level of creativity. And so 3.5 years in, I've been able to pull it off. The cool thing too is that I don't have to have a lot of people running around, producing everything. I can sort of do it all by myself or have an assistant do it where, everything is controlled here. A lot of automation, a lot of integration, just really, really high-tech stuff that you don't see just by looking around.
So this is pretty much a one-man show. You engineer, you're doing all the things. You're producing for all the podcasters.
Yes, I wear a lot of hats. So, yes, the term engineer, I guess that's, changing cameras and stuff. But I also produce the show, meaning I help them come up with format, with content. I do a lot of coaching. A lot of saying, okay, well,
whether you want the coaching or not.
Well, that's my job. I mean, if you think about it, right? You come here to produce a podcast, so hopefully whether it's to monetize or to support other business things that you're doing, right? You're creating content. And when we're doing the same thing, we have to get better. And so my job is objectively to say, here's some places where I think we can get better.
I like that.
And it's always a we. It's always a we.
It's always we. How did you get into this podcast space? Like what is your gift? How does this represent the gift you are to the world?
Well, it's funny because a lot of times you can get started on something and not know what your gift is and let it sort of all come to you later when you're going, okay, wait, I'm good at this, good at this, good at this. Oh, that means this is my gift. And so that's sort of how it came to me.
Wow.
People ask me, what podcasts I listen to. I don't listen to podcasts. I listen to the ones that I produce here.
Besides the Bridgett LaRé Show.
Yeah. Okay, the Bridgett LaRé Show. But my point is, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't really do stuff like that. But it's part of a passion, a little bit passion, because one, like I said, you want to give a voice to young creators and people who want to do things like this but don't know where to get started. There's always, what mics do I need? Do I need equipment? How do I get on YouTube? All of these questions. And my thing was, if I could eliminate all of those what ifs, how do I's, and just say, just come in and create. And I think you can say from your own experience, right?
Oh yeah, for
You
sure.
didn't have to bring anything, right?
No, you just bring yourself, and you have props around here.
Yeah, it's not just about building a set and putting some cameras.
Okay.
It's like, okay, how can I set this up so that I can switch these 3 cameras intuitively and not make a mistake? How can I set up sound so that when this podcast is done, I can set up a whole other set for another podcast in 15 minutes or less? And so there are all of these little pieces that have to go together to make it efficient as well as personalized,
Okay.
right? And so, putting this together, for instance, Podcast Place runs off 2 computers. One handles media, one handles cameras, right?
Okay.
Then there's audio, then there's the lighting, and then there's the controllers. So making all that stuff work together, that's what gets me excited. That's what I'm excited about, right?
Okay.
So integration, yes.
There we go.
Finally get around to it. Yeah, I really enjoy doing that, just being able to do it. Like, I don't necessarily tout the thing that's a one-man show. I don't know that, like, someone paying you is going to find that of value. Their value is more in, can you produce it quickly, cost efficiently, and get it to me tomorrow?
Literally, because the one you did today, Real Talk Sports, with Rico.
So
he was like, I need it tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's gonna be. We'll have it done tonight.
And welcome back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today I will be your host. Today's show we are talking about the Super Bowl. That is one of the most exciting events of the year. We are also too going to be having what I would say my rant of the day. We're going to be talking about the comeback player of the year, and then we're also going to be talking about my Washington Commanders and their wonderful hire in Dan Campbell. Before we actually jump into the content, let me first and foremost thank the fans out there for actually going ahead and checking out the content right there. We definitely appreciate you guys going ahead and chiming in. This helps drive content to the show. I also want to thank the sponsors out there who do put sponsorship on the show. And I also want to thank Spotify and YouTube, where you can actually find the podcast. You can actually see that in the show notes below. And then lastly, guys, I want to go ahead and thank the house for the podcast today. That is going to be the Podcast Place. This is the number one place you're going to come if you are in the Los Angeles area, to come on in here and record your content and have it look this wonderful like this. Shout out to Solomon on the ones and twos.
And so that's part of the process. It's also creating a system by which you can do these things on, quickly and efficiently. Yeah. So that does mean that there are certain things that you can't do. Like, people say, I want to come in and change this and move the seats around. Well, no, you can't move the seats around, but we can put seat covers on them.
Okay.
We can put, we could do things to make it yours.
You compromise.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you go to a decent restaurant, you can't go to McDonald's and order steak. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you can get a decent variety. Not that I compare this with McDonald's. I think this is more Ruth's Chris.
Okay.
I think I'm at that level here. But,
well, no, of podcasts, this is like the Noble of podcasts.
And I would think so. I haven't been to other podcast studios, but I know what people tell me. And a lot of my clients, I produce like 45 shows right now.
Wow, that's a lot of shows.
Yeah, and they're not every week. Some are,
But you have 45 different podcasts.
45 different shows
coming here to film.
Yeah, exactly. We probably produced. I would probably start coming up on maybe a little bit over 1,100 episodes.
Wow.
And I've done my little peeking at little things here and there. Sometimes you could go to competitors and look at their schedule and you go, well, that looks pretty empty, But it's not me being jealous. It's just me just sort of doing my due diligence, trying to understand where I fit in this ecosystem.
Well, what type of challenges did you have with coming up with the Podcast Place and getting your business to booming like this?
Well, the challenge is always getting people to know about it, right? There's also a challenge of hoping that you have what they need, have what people need. And I'll tell you, all of the things you see here are the results of somebody saying, hey, it would be great if we could do this. Or Solomon, can I do this? Or Solomon, I had this idea, right? For instance, I'll give you the funniest one. This set here, set A, where we did the tour, where that fits the 2 people. I used to have it where it could fit up to 4 people. It was a pretty crowded set. And one day I had a studio tour set, so I'm waiting. The guys knock, they come in. 4 huge guys. They were Samoan. They were all over 6'3". They were all pretty big, and they said, we want to do our podcast.
Okay.
And so I set them down in that area, and they fit. It just looked like they were all like this, And so they were saying, we're going to have guests, and some of our guests are, some pretty big guys, obviously, because we're promoting Samoan culture. And, you might get some guys 6'7", 350 or whatever. And I said, okay, I need to change. And so I decided to add a second set.
Okay, set B.
Set B, which would allow people to spread out, accommodate 5 people more in a more comfortable space. And so, again, that's an evolution based on what your customers need.
Got it. So you listen to your clients.
Absolutely. That's how you grow the business. And so that's always a challenge, because you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Somebody says, hey, can I do this? And you go, no, I'm not doing that. Because if it's just you and your little one-off thing, no. But
you won't grow.
If I feel like it's something that can benefit a multitude of people, then yes, I will add it.
Okay. So since you're talking about the sets, let's take everybody on a tour. How about that? Take us on a tour real quick.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
So this is the tour that I give to people when they come and they want to see the studio. Usually when people find me online, I almost don't want them to just start booking stuff. I want them to come and do a studio tour first, because they're always surprised at the capability and the things that they can do. And I don't like people to come in with assumptions. I'd rather them see the actual facts. So usually after we have the studio tour, the first thing we do, we sit down and we talk about what they want to do. And so we just sort of have a conversation. I do most of the listening in that situation, where I'm saying, tell me about your idea, how did you get it, and sometimes I'll even ask people, what are your bona fides? Why should people listen to you? What makes you the expert? I ask them to give me examples. If you were to start your podcast today, what would your first episode be like? Do you have a logo? Did you do it before? You try to get all that information. And a lot of times people are surprised that you want to know, but I want to know because I tell them I'm investing in you as well. I'm going to be a partner in helping you succeed. And so I want to understand where your passion comes from. So usually when we have that conversation, that's about 30 minutes long, then I actually get up and say, okay, let's take a walk around the studio. So we start here. So when you first come into your session, this is where you're going to be. This space right here is called the green room. And this is where, if you know anything about movies and acting or whatever, they have the green room. That's where the talent goes to relax and get ready before the session or whatever it is. So this is where they can come and sort of relax, prep, get ready. A lot of times people have to wait on their guests, and so they can do that here. There's a light that's on here. Let's see. Alexa, turn on conference. There it is. Okay. And so,
fancy.
Trying to stock everything here that people need. I got chapstick here, breath mints. I got a lint roller. Somebody put a bunch of pens in the lint roller. Markers, pens, just anything that people need to get ready. We got mirrors here, tissue, and you got to have Reese's. Now I have people who literally come back because I always have a stock of Reese's peanut butter cups here. On this side, people think this is a rice cooker. It's actually hot water, so you can make tea. At a Keurig for coffee, and just coffee, tea, and everything here. I have water here as well. And a lot of times people bring their own alcohol, so we keep cups and everything for them there. The one thing you can't do in the studio is smoke or vape. It's a building rule, and also I just don't really want to deal with that stuff, so I'd rather not have it. Now the thing that you notice about the studio is it doesn't look like a studio, like music studio, where it's dark and purple and all that. Lots of windows here. I know we're filming this at night, but there's lots of sunlight that comes through, hence we have live plants, and I often say that this place belongs more to them than it does to me. And so, I wanted to have this light, airy space. The other thing too is I have a lot of inspirational books here, good to great. They're all around the studio because again, it's about creating the right energy to be creative and be positive. Free Wi-Fi here. And you notice also the theme of the studio is old Los Angeles. So you'll see lots of old pictures of LA here. I have a particular love for the old Pacific Railway that used to be the subway in LA. And so you just have some ads and stuff here, and it's sort of all around. So, Los Angeles then and now. So this is like the space where you come to relax. Now, over here we have 2 sets. This is set A, and then we have set B. And people are always often surprised that we're able to fit so much into this small space. I don't really consider it small because I figure once you're sitting down, how much more space do you need, right? But so set A houses 2 people, and as you can see here, it's set up in a lounge setting. This is typically when one person is interviewing someone else. We also have a different setting where we take all of this out and put a table there. where you can have co-hosts or have, put a computer, things like that. And so when you come in, the first thing you notice is that this is not a set setting. This is not like you walk into a studio when they say, here's our room, there are the mics, go for it. This is something where you can personalize it and make it your own. We have shelves here where you can put all of your own things on it. Your logo's on the screen here. The lights and stuff can change to match your logo. So this really does become your space when you do a podcast here. And the same thing goes for both sides. Now, this section here is where I sit. This is sort of the control center. So the cool thing about doing a podcast, a lot of people feel like they're gonna be left alone. And it's like, nope, you're not alone. I mean, I'm always gonna be here. My job is to produce everything and make sure it goes well. So from this station, I control the lighting, the audio, the camera switching. We do live camera switching. I don't know if you see here, we have 4 cameras in this section. And then on the other side, which we'll get to, there are actually 5 cameras that record everything and allow us to follow your story visually as you're talking or entertaining your guests or telling a story or whatever. So over here, this is set B. And the first thing you'll see, of course, is that it's larger. Now this set B sits up to 5 people. So you've got, this is typically the host here and the co-host, and then this would be a first guest, second guest, and then we can put a third guest here, and we just basically bring in another mic for the third guest. Same thing with branding. Branding is a real big important thing to me. Like I've been in marketing for, at least 20 years, and branding is big. So I'm bringing the branding into podcasting. So the same thing here, you can personalize the space to make it yours. My little robots and all this stuff can be changed out to anything that other people want. There's lights in here that turn on to match your logo color. And then of course you've got the larger screens here that provide information while you're podcasting. So you notice here we have these 3 cameras. So this gives us the ability to do a variety of different close-ups depending on how many guests we have or how many people are attending or what kind of shots we want to make. Like if we want to do a nice cozy shot between host and guest, or we want to have individual, close-ups for each person. And then we have this one here, which actually goes back and forth by itself like this, and it basically sweeps the room to give us the whole broad view. And then there's one more camera here that's on a stand that I'm able to move into place or put wherever I need to put to give that shot straight across for the host or whatever. The other cool thing here is this brick wall. People will hang their neon there, or they'll hang pictures there. And again, it's just more part of that way to personalize your set. Now back here, this is my space. And the funny thing is when I first got this building, there was nothing here. This is just a hallway. And so you start thinking, how can I utilize this space? And so I decided to make it a kitchen. So I bought a fridge, put a fridge in, went to Home Depot, got some cabinets, picked up a bunch of beautiful Breville appliances. And so it's just more of a kitchen for me to get ready. And again, it follows the same theme, old LA. We got some old bottles here that I picked up from an antique store. And then over here, if you can see, we've got the old style clock. And then as well, here we've got this is the table where actually I literally sit and have lunch here. But you can look at the Woolworth menu, bacon and tomato sandwich, 50 cents, And so it's just carrying through with the theme of old LA, in here. And then back here, I have a sink that's dirty. I had a podcast where people were drinking champagne, so I got to wash these dishes. But I basically had to make my own sink because there's no water up here. So I had a sink where it has a pump and it has, fresh water and stuff. And so it'll work. It works great, but then every now and then you'll have to, go and refill the tanks and stuff like that. But, it makes it a very functional area where, I can refresh and recharge in between podcasts. Also keep drinks for people there, when they bring champagne and things like that for their shows. So
It's very innovative.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much for this beautiful walkthrough of the podcast, please. Solomon, like you said, you have to listen to your clients. If you don't continue to grow, you get left behind. So what type of things are you integrating? Because you've been doing this for 3.5 years. Like, what new things are you doing?
Right. Well, a lot of the stuff I integrate, you really don't see. And one of the simple things is when I have a desk on set A and you have 2 people sitting behind there, let's say I need to make an adjustment on the other side, I usually have to squeeze behind them. Right. So now I set it up where I change my set where I can now squeeze in front.
Okay.
Right? It's little things like that that just save time, save efficiency, all of those things. But more specifically, in growing the business, we're talking about some of the things where I'm improving for this year. One of the things I really want to do is start to create a sense of community with the creators here. A lot of places that do podcasts, they try to create a network. And the network is you perform on their channel, you're part of one of their many things there, and then they get that and then they do some kind of revenue share with you or whatever. I never really believed in that. I want people to have their own creative centers and appeal to their own audiences in their own way. Yeah. I mean, the variety of podcasts we have here, we have nuns, we have nurses, as you were here. We have transgender podcasts, outwardly gay podcasts, Disneyland podcasts, book reading podcast. I mean, just so many different types of podcasts.
Guys, I did my first podcast here with my friend David.
Yeah.
It was called Total Talk, Tribe of the One Light. And
I never understood it, but I just pressed the buttons.
You know what?
No, I'm kidding.
That's how I met Solomon, right?
I'm kidding.
And so Dave asked me to be a co-host on his podcast. So I did it, came here, met you.
Right.
And then when my girl SB asked me to do a podcast with her, I said, I got the perfect place.
Yeah, and she came back.
I came back. So that tells you something about the podcast place. So that's why he, it's like a little big brother, because I say little big brother because, the little brothers are pesky and they get on your nerves. That's him. He treats me like that. But, I let him.
It's all love, though.
It's all love.
It's all love.
When you come to the podcast place, I don't know, you have that energy where people just feel like your family, like they know you, like you're cool.
And believe it or not, that's really important.
Yeah.
To me. I want this place to feel welcoming and warm, and everyone tells me the energy feels good here.
It does.
And I always take pride in that. I've had a couple of podcasts that have come in, and I felt like the content they were producing wasn't really conducive to that good energy. Oh. And before I could say something, somehow they just stopped coming.
Oh, so you never had to kick anybody out?
No, I never had to kick anybody out.
Okay.
But you just get that feeling, and I just have this belief that a place can fill up with the right energy, right? Yeah. And if you come in with negative energy, you're going to feel it when you walk in.
And you're not even going to want to be here.
And it's not going to make you want to be here.
Gotcha.
That's what I believe.
Who were some of the people that inspired you? Like, who nourished your gift when you was a child? Who do you look up to?
Oh, just when I was a child?
Well, you know what? No, just period. Like, who are some of your heroes? Well, who has claim to you being the person you are today?
Oh, well, claim. Well, I don't know. I didn't really have, inspirations like that. I would say the number one thing would probably be my brother. You're older than me. When we were kids, he taught me pretty much everything, like computers, and we did a DJ thing together. I mean, we would walk in the summer. We would go to the Radio Shack in our neighborhood, and that's when they first started selling TRS-80 computers. Okay. And the salesmen there, they would let us sit at those computers all day long. Two little black boys sitting there at the computers, and we learned BASIC. We played games. He taught me things. We did little programs and stuff. That whole summer, I learned a lot. But, he was always the one doing stuff and then sort of bringing me along, teaching me how to do things. We started a DJ group in high school. And he was very good at emceeing on the mic and DJing. He didn't need me for nothing, but he included me by letting me become a DJ. And I was not as creative as him. I was probably a little more formulaic. Where you match the beats per minute and all that stuff. Yeah. But he allowed me to be part of it. You know what I mean? And he took on the emceeing part. So he was always a real inspiration for me. Other than that, I mean, it was more about situations and instances. Like, for instance, like this studio, I almost didn't start it.
Well, wait, what's your brother's name?
Clarence.
Clarence, okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Give a shout out to Clarence for this right here, the podcast place. And you learning how to play with these tools and things like that.
Well, it's funny because the time that I brought him in here, he's like, I don't want to touch anything. He's scared to touch because he doesn't know anything about it.
You done got too big.
Yeah. Okay, this is way beyond what he does. I don't want to touch anything. I'm like, okay, well. Yeah. So, but like I said, I almost didn't start it because I came up with the idea right before the C word in 2020. You know what I'm talking about? The C word.
I got you.
It's the word that if you say it.
Why don't you want to say the word?
Because then that's when they start banning your videos on certain platforms.
Okay.
We say certain
well,
things.
I think everybody know what we're talking about. Right. 2020, you can put two and two together.
Lockdown, you staying at home, that type of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Because I've been in this building for 6 years. I've been doing marketing, public relations for a lot of companies. And I wanted to do something to reach out and interact with the neighborhood, with the people here.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided on the podcast studio. So I went out, thought of just the perfect name. It cost me $1,000 to get the domain podcastplace.com, not the podcastplace.com.
Podcast.
Think of it like, because people go the podcast place, right? The place for podcasts. No, think of it like Melrose Place. Think of it like Podcast Street, Podcast Avenue.
Okay.
Place being a street denomination.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna let that fly, but I don't know. People gonna put.
I know, but I can't.
In it. I don't know. It
go
just
buy
flows.
the podcastplace.com. I don't think it's available.
Yeah,
so there you go. I got the thing, and I built the website, and I put sort of the whole thing together as much as I knew how to do. So the whole business model was set to go, and then, of course, things hit. Everything gets locked down, and so I'm like, of course, I'm not bringing nobody in here.
Yeah.
So after things sort of let up, it had done a pretty big. I'd taken a pretty big hit on my business, my marketing business. Lost a lot of clients.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you got clients who sell products and they can't get products, they don't need marketing, right? So,
yeah.
So I was focused on trying to rebuild that segment of the business, and I was thinking, well, I think I'm just not going to do the whole podcast thing. Until one day I got a call, and it was a kid named Dalen, and he says, "Hey, I just want to know if we're all set for tomorrow." I go, "Set for what?" He goes, "Oh, my podcast." And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, "Oh yeah, I scheduled online and everything. I got."
So you had no idea?
I had no idea, but see, that's the thing. The site was all ready to go. The paywall, all that stuff was all built, right?
But you was giving up on it because you like, oh,
yeah, and I had just let it go, right?
World. Okay.
And so I go, okay, hold on a second. And I went online. Sure enough, there was $79 sitting in there in the PayPal,
wow.
And he had gone and just. He just went through the website, read the stuff, and just booked an appointment.
Hey, remember 79? That was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The prices went up.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, he was interviewing some lady who's a young musician. And that forced me to start the business.
Wow.
The man paid. So I had to follow through,
Thank you, Dalen. I'm so glad you didn't give up. I'm so glad that the things were orchestrated perfectly for you to keep going.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was that's one of those things where you look and go, okay, there's a message there somewhere.
What is the message there?
Well, the message there is this is something you're supposed to be doing, and that's the way I looked at it. I ended up not getting a lot of that business back, the original business, which is fine because you can't divide your focus when you're doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lesson for people when you're starting a small business and you have to focus on it and you feel like, wow, the revenue's not coming in right now, and I should probably go do DoorDash or get another job, blah, blah, blah. You have to be careful with that kind of stuff because if it's going to divide your focus, then you're never going to be able to put the energy that you need into building this thing the right way, right? And this is after the whole point of you've thought about it. This is now when you've actually implemented and you're putting pieces in place and you're spending money. At that point, you have to be committed to a certain degree. Because if you divide your focus, then you're always going to be dependent on those two sources of income. Mm-hmm. You're never going to grow either one. So
so for somebody who may be sitting at home, they have maybe like you, how you was feeling like, you know what, it's not going to work. I'm just going to give up on it. Like somebody have a dream, they have already gotten started. Yeah. Right? What would you tell them?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to look at it from the standpoint of somebody who maybe has a job and maybe at some point they desire to start their own business or whatever. I guess in a lot of situations like this, you're going to hear somebody telling you, go for your dream or whatever. I'm not going to tell you that. I think it's only people who are well accomplished say things like that because I think they forget sometimes what that struggle is really like. Mm-hmm. Here's what I will say. You have accumulated obligations and responsibilities at a certain point in your life. You have to take care of those obligations and responsibilities. Mm-hmm. I have met so many multimillionaires who, have accomplished all this stuff. You see their names in the papers and you talk to them and they tell you about how their kids don't speak with them. They've never met their grandkids. They're on their fifth wife who all she does is shop. Mm. And, and you can see the regret in their eyes. And these are people that society looks up and calls heroes and innovators, but when they're on their deathbed, they're not thinking about, all of the adulation from the public. They're thinking about the kid who's not there, the daughter who won't return their calls or whatever. And so your priorities are important, okay? And you can't back away from that. So that being said, if you own a company, you give an employee 3 hours of work and you give them 8 hours to do it, they're going to stretch 3 hours of work into an 8-hour day.
That is so true.
And if you give him any more work, they're going to complain that they don't have enough time. There's always enough time. So what I will tell you is this: handle your responsibilities. If you got to work your job, you got to do whatever, you handle that, and you make time. You don't have time, make time, because there is time. Think about what you're doing. Think about the things you're doing that maybe you could now move some of that stuff to work on creating the format for the dream you want to do, whatever that is. Start, piecing the idea together. Start talking to your friends and people you know. Start to do more research on it so you understand not only what you want to do, but what the market around you is doing, what that landscape looks like.
And how you can collaborate with other people too.
So that's the point. I'm not telling you give up on everything, just go for it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying take care of responsibilities and you make time for this.
Yeah. It's this old head, like one of my old school friends, you always say, but you got to take the time to make the time, to have the time to do the things you're designed to do.
Yeah.
So that reminded me of that.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's not an easy road. I mean, there are sacrifices to be made, but the sacrifices don't need to be your family. It might be a couple hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
It might be hanging out with the friends. It might be spending money on something you would normally do on the weekends. Mm-hmm. That's the time you need to now allocate to creating and crafting your idea. And once you get to the point where you're ready to implement, now it's going to be even more time. So you have to be prepared on your responsibility side. Maybe that means you save some money. Maybe that means your spouse who's in it with you maybe gets another job or has another source of income. Maybe that means you guys dip into savings or you take out a loan or whatever that is. But once you commit to that, now you're committed. Like we talked about, commitment is important. Commitment is important. And I don't commit to a lot of things.
But when you do, you commit.
When I commit, I commit.
Okay.
So this is something you've grown, and it deserves every bit of your attention, every bit of your devotion, your passion to make it happen. Because without you, it's not going to happen.
And without you, podcast place would not be happening, because you bring so much to it. Like I was watching you do the Real Talk Sports with Rico, and it was just like you give so much of yourself, and at the end you're coaching, you help him with things that he can better himself at.
Yeah.
You seen things I didn't see. I sat here and watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was like, first, as soon as he finished, I'm like, man, that was great. You like, yeah. And, when you did this, I was like, I didn't catch that.
But you say it in a collaborative way.
Yeah.
Right? It's always we. It's like, okay, here's some things for coaching. And his thing was, he just sort of misspeaks sometimes. His diction is great. He speaks a little fast, a little bit, and so you tell him, slow down, especially when you start going through statistics, slow down a bit so that you get the numbers right. You say the right team, not the wrong team, things like that. And these are things that the listener will ultimately forgive you for. But if you can be better at it, why not be better? And so that's my job, to see those things and coach. The other thing I love to do is, I don't know if you saw when he started talking about the Kobe Bryant statue, right?
Yeah, I did.
So it's like, okay, let me see if I can find it online real quick. Okay, I found the picture. Let me blow it up right, because all you see is the picture. Let me put it on full screen. Now I put it on the screen next to him. You see?
This guy took the Lakers all the way back and got them within a point of winning the game, took the last shot, and missed. And I just never will forget, man, his ability to compete. I never will also forget the epic finals that he had against the Boston Celtics, one of the last times he won a chip. Just being out here and actually kind of working in the building with the Clippers at the time, man, it's just like, dude, his ability to really just lead, and his mindset, man. And if you've ever read the book, The Mamba Mentality, I'd advise you go out there and really get that. It's great too.
So when I'm a team member with you on your podcast, this is how I can now add more value by listening to what you're talking about, putting those things and making it part of your show. And it's amazing how people get started. Oh, there it is. It's right there.
It's so beautiful. And at the time, you feel cared for. You feel seen. You feel supported.
It's like, no, that guy's actually listening.
Yeah,
he's not just sitting there pressing buttons.
Yeah, me and SB was doing when we was doing, I was about to say podcast place. That's yours. When we were doing Pause and Proceed podcast, you would do that all the time. We're like, oh my God, Solomon,
or
thank
those,
you.
or those stats or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you will
it's-
pull up books for us all the time. So I think that is the benefit of coming to Podcast Place rather than just doing a podcast at home.
Yeah, at home. I mean, yeah, there's a whole other bunch of benefits. Like,
Yeah.
number one, not having to set up and tear down equipment,
Yeah.
or listen to, your kids come screaming while you're trying to do something.
Mhm.
And I think it's just always better. And not to mention, camera quality, being able to switch back and forth. I mean, like this podcast, I know you're starting this out. We have the one camera view.
Yes.
Now imagine once you get
This
to
is
the
it.
point where you've got, like, when I'm talking, it's just on me. When you're talking, it's just on you. I say something funny, which I always do, and then you laugh and cut to you to get your reaction
Yes.
and cut back to me.
Yeah.
That's what makes it fun. That's
Yeah.
where you're creating a visual that follows the story. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what makes people really sort of engage, and that's what we do here.
Well, only if I can get you to come travel with me, because the Bridgett LaRé Show is on the road, it's mobile. If you could
Yeah.
just come travel with me.
Yeah.
Can I borrow you
What's
for
that travel budget
a
look
season?
like?
Oh,
What's that travel? What's that travel? I got to go buy all new equipment and
that would be lovely. Okay, Solomon, is there anything you want to share with the people before we go? Something that we didn't cover?
Well, I would say this: if you are wanting to do a podcast, don't get so caught up in, like, oh, what equipment do I need or whatever. I mean, talk to someone who's sort of done it before. If you're in this area, feel free to call me.
What area?
Well, actually, feel free to call me anyway. I'd be happy just to talk and offer the advice I can offer.
Oh.
But if you're interested in
generous.
actually seeing the studio, go to podcastplace.com, schedule a studio tour. We service, like, LA County, Riverside County, Orange County. I get people from all over. Conveniently located in Long Beach, so we're right off the 405, which means you don't have to go all the way to LA and deal with all that traffic. But schedule a studio tour. I'd almost rather you do that than pay and book, because I
Yeah.
want people to really understand the capabilities. I want to understand what your passion is, what you want to do, with your podcast. Maybe there's ideas I can offer. Maybe we can flesh the idea out together, because we're going to be a team ultimately in putting it together.
Yeah.
And so once we do that, then you come in, and then that's when you can book sessions, and then we get to know how each other works, and you can understand how the benefits of having the studio and having someone on your team who supports you.
Yeah.
You're not doing it alone.
You're not alone.
That's
You're
the
not
biggest
alone.
thing, and that's what I think people
Yes.
feel most comfortable with. You're not just alone,
Yeah.
having to deal with your own thoughts. Did I do this right? You got someone to give you feedback.
You're going to give them feedback.
Yeah, it's my job.
Yeah, it's your job. You do a great job at it, too.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate
where are you on Instagram?
on Instagram at Podcast Place.
At Podcast
And
Place.
and everything is done through the website podcastplace.com. That's where you check the studio schedule. That's where you do all of your scheduling and rescheduling and all of that stuff. So everything is done there. And I'm also adding a sort of community collab center.
Oh,
And so it's like
what does that look like?
it looks like a mini Facebook, right?
Okay.
Where you can go on. Everyone who signs up to the website automatically has a profile there. You can put a wall picture for your profile, put your picture in there. You can upload different things. You can reach out and make friends with other people who are creators here.
Oh, y'all can get on each other's podcast.
Yeah, and so that's why it's called a collab center.
Oh,
just
I love
something
that.
brings people together. It's there. It's live. It's in its early stages. It's not something I'm gonna force on people. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna put it out there, let everybody know it's there. If you feel like you want to use it, and reach out to other creators and do things, and maybe at some point, maybe I'll start doing some announcements on there as well. If we want to have like a pizza night at a local place or
Oh,
whatever.
that'd be fun.
You
Can
know,
you
just-
invite me?
Yeah, just
Okay.
to get as an alum creator.
yeah.
Just to get all the creators together, just that way. It's not about creating a network for financial gain. It's just more about creating a community of creative people.
Yeah.
And I think I'd really like to do that.
So if you want to be part of this community, go to podcastplace.com or look them up on Instagram at Podcast Place.
Yeah.
And you know what? Believe in yourself. Solomon believed in himself. He almost gave up, but thank God there was somebody that came through. Like, look, bro, I need you. Dalen came through. So
His
believe
money
in
talks.
yourself. You know what? Because if you don't, nobody else will. And even if they do, if you don't believe it, it don't matter. You gotta believe it. Right?
Right.
All right, y'all. We catch you on the next Bridgett LaRé Show. Follow Solomon Podcast Place, y'all. Deuces.
LaRé. It's your girl. LaRé.